to bring the jury back in?
Before the jury enters, I've submitted to the court and to defense counsel state's proposed jury instructions regarding the redaction of defendant's interview with Sanford police investigators, and also state's proposed jury instructions regarding the redaction of defendant's interview with Sean Hannity. There are various interviews, and at some point these will be relevant. I believe the defense counsel has no objection, and I will just request that the court read this at the appropriate time, and I will alert the court with the court permission.
Okay, there is no objection to either one of these?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. You'll let me know.
And one final thing, if I could, Mr. Romero and I met, I guess, late Friday. We had been meeting before in terms of redactions, but we have agreed to redactions that were made and will be part of the record of the actual exhibit, or some of the exhibits that will go in regarding the defendant's interview. I just want to put that on the record.
Sure. You may want to clear with the court what you intend to do and what's going in and what's not for audio, video, or...
Right. There are parts of the recordings of interviews with the defendant that, due to agreement by both sides and obviously in terms of legal requirements, were excised out or redacted out.
And it is the redacted copies that are going to be introduced into evidence?
Correct, Your Honor. That is the only part that will be introduced into evidence. Some of them are audio and some of them are video. No, that's correct. There are transcripts, but they're not being introduced because you can understand what's being said.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready to bring the jury in?
We are, Your Honor.
Okay, come on, we'll bring them in.
Jurors present, Your Honor.
Please be seated. The state will please call your next witness.
I would call Doris Singleton.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Doris Singleton, S-I-N-G-L-E-T-O-N.
What is your occupation, ma'am?
I'm a police officer of the Sanford Police Department.
And are you assigned to a particular unit?
I'm assigned to the Neighborhood Response Unit.
How long have you been with the Sanford Police Department?
December will be 9 years.
And what have been your previous assignments prior to the one you're in right now?
I've also been on road patrol. I've been a school resource officer. I've been an investigator with the narcotics unit.
Okay. How long were you an investigator with the narcotics unit?
About 3 to 4 years.
Okay. And how long have you been in your current position?
Since February.
Okay. Prior to that, were you with the narcotics unit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And prior to being with the Sanford Police Department, did you have any law enforcement experience?
Out of college, many years ago, I was a parole officer for 2 years with the state.
Can you briefly tell us about your education background, ma'am?
I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Florida in criminal justice with a minor in legal studies.
Okay.
I also went to the Probation Officer Academy. After college, that was in '92, and I've been to the Police Academy.
Okay.
And then we have
Okay.
training as we go along within the police department.
All right. I want to draw your attention back to February of last year, that is 2012. What was your assignment at that time?
I was assigned to the narcotics unit as an investigator.
I want to draw your attention to Sunday evening, February 26th of 2012. Were you on duty or off duty that evening?
I was off duty.
Did you get a call to assist an investigator regarding a shooting that occurred at the retreat at Twin Lakes?
Yes, I received a call from Sergeant Santiago.
Okay. And how was it that you were off duty? You got called to assist him, I guess? Did there need to be an additional investigator, or how did that come about?
Well, the sergeants within the investigative unit are have an on-call status, and they take turns. So that particular week, Sergeant Santiago, who is my supervisor for the narcotics unit, was the on-call sergeant for any investigative call-outs. And so he called me to assist.
And were you assigned to assist investigator Chris Sereno?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was he the lead investigator?
Chris Sereno is the lead investigator, yes.
When you were called that evening, did you actually go to the crime scene itself, that is, to retreat at Twin Lakes, or did you go elsewhere?
I did not ever go out to the crime scene that night. I went straight to the police department.
And were you requested by somebody to go to the Sanford Police Department?
Yes, sir. I believe it was Sergeant Santiago that asked me to go there.
Okay. And for the purpose of doing what at the police department?
I wasn't told, I believe, until I got there.
Okay. So you were directed specifically not to go to the scene, but to go to the actual police department?
Yes, I believe at that time I was already told that Zimmerman was already en route to the police department. Of course, I didn't know his name at the time.
When you arrived at the Sanford Police Department, was George Zimmerman already present there?
Yes.
Okay. If you could, do you see George Zimmerman in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And
Yes, I
is
do. He's
that the
standing.
person that just stood up?
Yes, sir.
Trying to directly reflect the witness, identify the defendant?
Record will so reflect.
When you came into contact with the defendant, George Zimmerman, was he in an interview room, ma'am?
Yes, sir. George Zimmerman was in an interview room.
And were there any officers present there?
Not in the same room, but in a room where they could observe him. This particular interview room got a two-way mirrored glass where you can see into the room, but he wouldn't have been able to see out of the room. And Officer Adam Johnson and Officer Timmy Smith were there on the other side of the glass watching him.
Yes, ma'am. You briefly described the interview room. How big would you say it is about?
I would say it's maybe 8 feet by 5 feet. I'm not really good at measurement, so.
And is there a table and chairs in the interview room?
Yes, a table probably similar to the size of the table I'm sitting at now.
Okay. Did you end up talking to the defendant, George Zimmerman?
Yes, I did talk to him that night.
And was your interview with the defendant, George Zimmerman, recorded in any way, ma'am?
Yes, it was.
And can you briefly tell us how it was recorded?
It was recorded on just a voice recorder that they give us.
Okay. Does that room have the capability of video recording?
It does,
And can you tell us why it was not videotaped?
because I didn't know how to activate that system.
Now, even though by law an officer is not required to inform a person being interviewed that they're recording the interview, did you in fact inform the defendant that you were recording that interview?
I did inform him of that, and I placed also the recorder where he could see that it was being recorded as well.
Did you advise the defendant, George Zimmerman, of his constitutional rights, or what's referred to Miranda rights?
I did.
And did you use a form in doing that, ma'am?
Yes, I did.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's been introduced into evidence, State's Exhibit 174. I believe there's no objection.
That's correct, thank you.
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
Me.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 174. Do you recognize said exhibit?
I do.
What do you recognize State's Exhibit 174 to be, ma'am?
This is the Miranda warning card that I read from that night, and that,
Constitutional rights, or his Miranda rights, recorded as part of the recording that you took of the interview of the defendant.
yes, the reading of the rights as well as you can hear me having them sign it.
Okay. Did you ask the defendant whether he understood his rights, ma'am?
Yes, I did.
And did he indicate whether he did or not?
He said that he understood.
And did he agree to waive his rights and talk to you?
He did.
Did you ask him questions as part of the interview, and did he respond to your questions?
Yes.
Okay. At any time during the investigation, did you threaten the defendant in any way in order to get him to make a statement?
No, I did not.
At any time during the interview, did you promise him anything in order to get him to make a statement, ma'am?
No, I didn't promise him anything.
In your prior experience as a police officer in the Sanford Police Department, have you had occasion to come into contact with people under the influence of alcohol and or drugs?
Yes, very much.
Did the defendant appear to be under the influence of alcohol and or drugs to the point where he was incapable of understanding what was going on?
I did not get any indication that he was under any influence of anything.
When he spoke to you, did you have any problems understanding him when he spoke to you?
No, he spoke clearly.
And did he have any problems understanding you when you asked him questions?
He never said that he misunderstood anything I said to him.
When you came into contact with him, did you notice some injuries on him?
Yes.
Okay. And did you discuss those with him, whether he needed any medical treatment or not?
Briefly, yes.
Okay. And did he say he did need medical treatment?
He said that he didn't, from what I recall when I first walked into the room. Later on in the interview, he said he was not sure.
Okay. And did you discuss that with him in terms of providing him an opportunity if he so desired to get medical treatment?
Yes.
And did he decline that?
Yes.
Okay. Did he complain of an injury when you were speaking of it, like my head is, just, I can't think, I'm in pain, I just can't think? Did he ever express that to you?
No, he never said those things in that way.
If he had done so, would you have interrupted or stopped the interview and had him checked out in some way?
If he had asked at all for any reason, no matter how he was showing himself, that he wanted to go to the hospital, I would have made that happen.
Ma'am, when you came into contact with him, was that the evening of February 26th of 2012, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you recall approximately what time you came into contact with him?
Probably somewhere between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, but that would be a guess.
Okay. And when you first came into contact with the defendant, you described, did he have some blood on his nose?
He had crusted blood underneath his nose.
Okay. Did he also have some blood on the back of his head?
Yes, that was actively bleeding.
Okay. And did he use some tissues to stop that from bleeding?
Yes, we have a tissue box on the table in the interview rooms, and he was using those tissues.
Okay. Your Honor, this time I would formally move into evidence. I apologize. Let me make sure I've got the State's Exhibit 178, which is the defendant's interview with Miss Singleton, Officer Singleton. It's 178. I believe there's no objection.
Okay.
That's correct.
It'll come into evidence.
There is an instruction the court may address at some point.
Not as to this one. Ma'am, you've had an opportunity to review the recording that was taken of the defendant, the audio recording, is that correct?
The interviews with myself, yes.
Yes. Okay. The interview, we start. The interview itself is you asking Mr. Zimmerman questions, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. During the interview that you conducted of Mr. Zimmerman, you had not been to the scene itself, to the shooting scene, is that correct?
No, I was not at the scene.
So you were not able to quiz him or to challenge him as to what he said because you were not aware of the facts, I'm assuming?
Yes, I essentially knew nothing going in to speak to him.
What was the purpose in terms of interviewing him then?
To get a statement from him.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, the date is February 22nd, 2012. It's Investigator Singleton. I'm sitting in an interview room at the Sanford Police Department with...
Now, just to make sure the record, you stated on that February 22nd. In fact, Mr. Zimmerman corrected you and pointed out that it was actually February 26th. Is that correct?
Yes, I misspoke. It was February 26th.
Okay, thank you.
George Michael Zimmerman, in reference to an event that happened out at 2831 Retreat View Circle. I'm going to read you your Miranda rights because obviously you're here, and you are free to go right now because we got to figure out what's going on. Sure. You haven't been charged with a crime yet, but you are here and you can't go until we figure out what really happened. And so I'm going to ask to talk to you about it, but I got to give you your Miranda warning so that you understand. Sure. Okay? Okay, you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to talk to me. Okay? Anything you say can't be used against you in court. I mean, if you say something that proves your guilt, we can use it to prove your guilt. Okay, you understand that? Okay. You have the right to have an attorney present now or at any time during questioning. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you without any cost. Okay. If you talk to me, you have the right to stop answering questions or speak to an attorney at any time. Okay. Do you understand these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you want to talk to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What I need you to do here is put your signature and just date it.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is being recorded, this interview. Okay.
2/21?
What did you say it was? Today is the 26th. And I'm going to sign right here. And I witness you sign this card. And I'll put the case number later because I know part of it, but I'm not sure. Okay. I haven't been out there, okay? So I just want you to tell me.
When you say you haven't been out there, what were you referring to, ma'am?
To the crime scene.
Thank you.
Before this incident, everything you know, why you were there, and all this stuff. First of all, did you live at this address here?
No.
Okay, so this address on your license that says 1874 Valleywood Way in Lake Mary, you no longer live there?
Correct.
Okay. Do you live in the complex or neighborhood where this occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What is your address?
1950.
This is the correct one?
Yes, ma'am.
So you live at 1950 Retreat View Circle. I'm just going to keep quiet, and you tell me the story. You tell me what happened tonight, okay?
Just tonight?
Yeah, or whatever led up to this. Anything you want to tell me about what happened and why it ended up, what it ended up to where this boy got shot. Okay.
The neighborhood has had a lot of crimes. My wife saw our neighbors get broken into and she got scared.
Are you talking about the residents or vehicles?
The residents,
Okay.
while it was occupied. So I decided to start a neighborhood watch program in my neighborhood.
Okay, what is the name of the neighborhood?
Retreat at Twin Lakes.
Is it the little two-story condos or
The townhouses.
townhouses? Okay. Retreat
Retreat at Twin Lakes.
at Twin Lakes. Okay. Okay, you started a
Neighborhood watch.
neighborhood watch. Okay.
Wendy Dorval, Sergeant Hertz, Officer Buchanan, and I'm the coordinator. And there's been a few times where I've seen a suspicious person in the neighborhood. We call the police, the non-emergency line, and these guys always get away.
What made them suspicious?
This gentleman in particular, I'd never seen him in the neighborhood. I know all the residents. It was raining out, and he was leisurely walking, taking his time, looking at all the houses.
Okay.
When I drove by, he stopped and looked at me.
Had you seen him before?
Never.
Never? Okay.
I know all the kids in my neighborhood, all the adults in my neighborhood. And like I said, it was raining, and he was just walking casually, not like he was trying to get out of the rain.
Tell us what happened right there.
Sergeant Santiago was still at the crime scene, and he had chirped my Nextel phone,
Okay.
and he wanted me to find out from George if there was, he wanted to find out from George Zimmerman and wanted me to ask him if there was any phone numbers or contact persons that he could locate or give information on to see if there was video surveillance of the gate as to which cars come through the gate.
Okay.
Been an interview. Yes.
Is that Sergeant Santiago asking you something, and that's why it's not clearly coming out on the recording?
Right, because it's coming into my phone and I have the phone to my ear.
Okay. And he's asking you if there's a tape or video at the gate as far as viewing the cars coming in and out?
Yes, he wants me to find out from George Zimmerman if he knows that information.
Okay.
You know if there's any tape or recordings of vehicles that come in and out of that neighborhood?
Last time they were down, the cameras
It
were
has
broken.
the ability, but you don't know if it's running.
Correct.
He says they do have video, but he doesn't know if it's working right now because last he knew it wasn't working. Do you know who the contact is for that video?
Leland Management in Orlando. And his name is Kent Taylor.
Okay. What are we talking about there in terms of contact? Somebody that be able to, well, tell me what you mean by that.
My question to George was if he knew somebody who could get that information that Santiago was asking for. Sergeant Santiago wanted to know who could he contact in order to find out how to get the surveillance from a camera if it existed.
So you're asking the defendant in terms of a contact person so Santiago can contact that person?
Right, I guess he would assume that George would know, being part of the neighborhood watch, and
Okay.
he would know who to contact for that type of surveillance video.
Thank you.
Kent Taylor. You don't have
I
a phone.
did my cell phone.
What is Mr. Zimmerman doing now? Actually looking through his cell phone, the defendant?
Yes, if at some point I go out of the room and I come back in and I give him the phone so that he can look up the phone number that Sergeant Santiago is requesting.
Okay. Meaning the defendant's phone, Mr. Zimmerman's phone?
Yes, his cell phone.
Okay.
It's Leland Management. So for Leland Management in Orlando, the contact person is Kent Taylor, but he doesn't have the phone number on him.
When Sergeant Santiago asked you to find out the 43, what did he mean by that?
Get the information. 43 is just a 10 code for information. But I haven't gone out of the room yet,
Okay.
based on what I just heard.
Okay.
Sometimes they have you do this. Do you know where your cell phone is right now?
They took it from me.
With these officers? Okay. I'll be right back. Would you mind getting his phone number
No.
off your phone if you have it?
Now, at this point, are you asking the defendant to find or look in his phone and get the phone number that he just talked about?
Yes, I went and retrieved the phone, brought it back to the room, handed it to him, and asked him if he wouldn't mind looking up the phone number that was being requested.
That's his email. 407-781-1181. The HOA president might also know.
Okay, what's his name?
Don, D-O-N, it's 407-790-0054. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
What's going on now? Are you relaying that information to Sergeant Santiago?
Yes, I believe I walked out of the room and relayed that information to him through my Nextel outside of the room.
So even though you walked out of the room, the recording was still going on?
Yes, the recorder remained inside the room.
I apologize about that. Okay. Let's get back to where you were. Okay, you started a neighborhood watch group.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And
I had called before the police had come out, but these guys know the neighborhood very well. They would cut in between buildings and loot.
you're saying these guys, who are these guys?
The people committing the burglaries.
So you've seen more than one person, like, looking suspicious and doing these burglaries?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. But you never had seen this guy prior to tonight, or you don't
I
know?
don't recall. I've
Okay.
called a few times. I think you guys probably have the records.
Okay.
I've probably called a half a dozen times.
Okay.
And this time, I was leaving to go to the grocery store, and like I said, I saw him walking in the neighborhood, in front of the same house that I had called the police before to come to, because this guy leaves his doors unlocked and stuff, and he was walking leisurely and looking at the houses, and so I just pulled my car to the side and I called the non-emergency line.
Were you armed at this point?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
were already armed, okay.
Yes, ma'am. I called the non-emergency line and I just reported that there was a suspicious person in the neighborhood. The dispatcher or whoever answered the phone asked me where they went, and I said I wasn't sure because I lost visual of him when he went in between the houses. And he said, well, can you tell me what direction he went? And I said, not really. And then all of a sudden I see him circling my car. And then he goes back into the darkness. So
Do you remember, you pull out of your house and you're heading down the road as you're looking at him.
yes, ma'am.
You're on the phone and he dips between two houses, is that what you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you lose sight of him, okay.
Correct. And then he comes back out and circles my car while I'm on the phone with the police.
Okay, is he saying anything to you?
I couldn't hear him. My windows were up.
Okay.
As soon as I saw him coming up, I rolled up my windows and I stayed on the phone with dispatch.
Okay, your car was running?
Yes,
The
ma'am.
lights were on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you knew somebody was in this car?
Yes, ma'am.
And is he walking completely around the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And dispatch asked me where he went. I didn't know the name of the street that I was on.
So you'd come off your street and gotten to another street?
Yes, ma'am.
At some point,
That
okay.
goes in, cuts through the middle of my neighborhood.
Okay.
I didn't know the name of the street. or where he went. So I got out of my car to look for the street sign and to see if I could see where he cut through so that I could tell.
So after you circled your car, he disappeared again?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Then dispatcher told me, where are you? And I said, I'm trying to find out where he went. And he said, we don't need you to do that. And I said, well, okay. He said, we already have a police officer en route. And I said, all right. And I had gone through the dog walk where I normally walk my dog, and walked back through to my street, the street that loops around. And he said, we already have a police officer on the way. So I said, okay. They said, would you like a police officer to meet you? And I said, yes. And I told them where my car was and the make and the model.
Mm-hmm.
So I was walking back through to where my car was, and he jumped out from the bushes, and he said, what the fuck's your problem, homie? And I got my cell phone out to call 911 this time. And I said, hey man, I don't have a problem. And he goes, no, now you have a problem. And he punched me in the nose. At that point, I fell down. I tried to defend myself. He just started punching me in the face. And I started screaming for help. I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe. Then he started taking my
And you're
head.
still standing at this point?
No ma'am,
Okay.
I fell to the ground.
Okay.
And then I started yelling help. When I started yelling for help, he grabbed my head and he started hitting my head into the... I tried to sit up and yell for help. And then he grabbed my head and started hitting it into the sidewalk. When he started doing that, I slid into the grass to try and get out from under him, and so that he would stop hitting my head into the sidewalk. And I'm still yelling for help. And I could see people looking, and some guy yells out, I'm calling 911. And I said, help me, he's killing me. And he puts his hand on my nose and on my mouth, and he says, you're gonna die tonight. And I don't remember much after that. I just remember I couldn't breathe, and then he still kept trying to hit my head against the pavement, or I don't know if there was a sign or what it was. So when I slid, my jacket and my shirt came up. And when he said, you're gonna die tonight, I felt his hand go down on my side, and I thought he was going for my firearm. So I grabbed it immediately, and as he banged my head again, I just pulled out my firearm and shot him.
Okay. And then what happened? You're both on the ground?
I'm
He's
on my
top
back,
of you?
he's on top of me.
Okay.
He's mounted on top of me. And I just shot him, and then he falls off, and he's like, all right, you got it.
Does he fall to the side and he stays laying on the ground, or does...
I don't remember.
Okay.
My vision was blurry. And
You didn't feel him fall towards you? He somehow ended up to one side or the other, or you don't know?
I don't remember. I think when I shot him, it might have pushed him back. But I remember I didn't know what he was hitting. It felt like he was hitting me with bricks. So I remember once I shot him, I holstered my firearm and I got on top of him and I held his hands on because he was still talking. And I said, stay down, don't move. And then somebody comes out, and I couldn't see, there was a flashlight in my head, so I asked if it was a police officer. And he said no, it was a witness, but he was calling the police. And I said, the police are on the way, they should be here already, because I had called.
Okay.
And he's like, I'm calling the police. And I said, I don't need you to call the police, I need you to help me with this guy. And then an officer shows up. Again, he had the flashlight, so I couldn't see him. And he asked me, who shot this guy? And I said, I did. And I immediately put my hands on top of my head, and I told the police officer where my firearm was. And then he handcuffed me and took my firearm.
Okay, after you shot him, he said, you got me?
Yeah.
Okay. And then when you got on top of him, did he say anything else?
He said, ow, ow.
And he was, okay. You said you had walked back there
Yes, ma'am.
to try to find out where he went. And you were already on the phone with dispatch at that point? Because you said you called him from your car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the whole time you were on the phone
Yes,
with
ma'am.
dispatch? Were you still on the phone with him when he jumped out? And,
No.
okay, you had hung up?
Yes.
Okay. Did did someone else call before the shot? He said he was already calling, right? Or while he was hitting you, you said you heard someone say, I'm calling?
Yes.
I'm calling, okay. So someone else might have been on the phone
Yes, ma'am.
with dispatch while you were being beat up?
Yes, ma'am.
And you had never seen this guy before?
I don't recall. It's always dark. They always come around nighttime. And
What did he look like?
African American, early 20s, late teens. He was taller than me, so I'd say 6. Footish, slender board jeans.
It was all dark colored stuff?
No, the hoodie was gray and the sweatpants were like, maybe like a denim color, like stonewash denim.
What was his hairstyle? Did he have short
He
hair?
had the
Did he
hood
have
on.
dreads, or so you couldn't see?
No,
Okay. All right. How's your head?
I can't feel it.
Okay, and who told you, you said when I came in here, they said someone told you you broke your nose? They told you that? They told you that? Okay, did you need to go to the hospital?
I don't know. They said I didn't, but I don't know.
Is this bump, I can't tell what's normal for you. Can you see?
I can't.
Like right here, does this, right here, does that look like a contusion there of some sort, or is that the normal shape of your head?
No, it's not normal.
Okay, because it looks swollen there. Can I see the other side? Yeah, I'm gonna get him.
Are you examining the sides of his head at that time?
I've stood up and come to his side of the table so that I can see all sides of his head.
Okay, the person who said, I'm calling for you, did you recognize that person? Okay, so you don't know if that was a resident or?
They were looking out of their back patio.
Okay, so it was somebody that was looking from a residence saying that
Yes,
they were
ma'am.
calling? Okay, did you see more than just that person, or?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so that person, and that person said, I'm calling.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, nobody came over to assist in pulling them off. And you were between two houses when this happened?
Behind the houses.
You were behind the houses?
It's a row of houses, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there's a row of houses, and you had gone back behind, and then you were on your way back
Yes, ma'am.
out? Okay. Was it one of the houses along the wall? I don't know when
No,
this
ma'am.
happened, so.
No, would you like me to draw it?
Yeah, sure, you can do it.
The neighborhood is kind of like a square, like this. And then there's a row of houses here. This is the wall, and there's houses here. And then there's another row of houses here. And this is houses. I parked my car here, the mailbox is here. He went through this dog walk here, and you can either go down the sidewalk here between this row of houses, or you can go straight through to this street. So this is asphalt, I'm sorry, my hands.
That's okay.
This is asphalt, and so I walked straight through to see if there was a street sign that I could tell dispatch where I lost sight of him at. And when I walked back, that's when he came out of the darkness, and I guess he was upset that I called the police.
So this is behind the house that he comes out of the darkness?
Yes,
Behind the
ma'am.
building? Okay. And you said there's some bushes or something that
Yes,
you may
ma'am.
have came out of? Okay.
Because when I walked past, I didn't see him down here. So I walked through to make sure, I looked to make sure he wasn't there.
Right.
And then I walked straight through to see a street sign. And then when I came back, obviously he was waiting somewhere.
Okay. And where is your cell phone? Where was your cell phone? Had you already had it back in your pocket at that point, or did it get dropped, or what happened with your cell phone?
No, I had it in my hand. When I put it, and they said, would you like the police officer to meet you? And I said, yes, my car's there.
And that's when they disconnected with you?
Yes, ma'am.
That's when they said, okay, they're on scene, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So I did. I put my cell phone away.
Okay.
And then when I walked back towards him, I saw him coming at me, and I went to grab my phone. I don't remember if I had time to pull it out or not.
Okay, you attempted to try to recall that?
To call the police.
Call the police, right.
911 this time, because the first time I called 911.
But you're not sure if you actually got it out of your pocket or not?
I don't recall.
Okay. And that's when he slugged you?
He just hit me, yeah.
And what did he say before that? You said he asked you like something about, he said, you got a
He
problem?
said, you got a problem with me? And I said, I don't have a problem. And he said, now you have a problem.
Okay.
and that's when he hit me.
And he struck you in the nose first,
Yes, ma'am.
and that's what knocked you down?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you're saying this is behind the building though?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you sure, is it a patio that he's hitting? Because you said he's hitting your head on a
No,
sidewalk.
it's the sidewalk.
Okay, there's a sidewalk behind?
Yes,
the
ma'am.
building?
It's a
Okay.
dog walk.
Okay.
And this is a row of houses, and this is a row of houses, and this is the dog walk.
Okay.
So I walk back here. He
So
hit
the
me.
dog walk is cement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Okay, so he's hitting your head.
Yes, ma'am. As I went to sit up, then he grabbed me by the front of my head and started banging into the...
And that's when you can look either to your left or right and you can see this guy? And you're saying, help me?
I don't remember. I screamed, help me, probably 50 times, as loud as I could.
Okay, but at some point you could visually see that there was someone
Yes, ma'am.
saying something to you from
Yes,
a
ma'am.
patio? Okay. Do you remember what that person looked like? Okay, and the police got there,
Yes, ma'am.
and you were holding him down,
Yes, ma'am.
and they asked you,
No, once the police got there, I got on my feet. Because there was another person that got there, I guess a resident. I couldn't see, he had a flashlight, so I thought it was a police officer.
and at that point you stood up and got off him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then when the police got there, I was already standing up, and I put my hands on top of
So we're talking about seconds between the time you see the flashlight and the police show up, or was it a little bit?
It seemed like a while, but I'm sure it was seconds.
Okay. And they put you at gunpoint?
I don't know. I had my back. I put my hands on my head and I turned my back to him immediately.
Okay. What were they saying to you, the police?
He said, who shot him? And I said, I did.
Okay. That's when you did this?
Yes, ma'am. And I said, I have my gun on my right side in my holster in my waistband. And he said, I know you do. He goes, but I have to handcuff you first. And I said, I just wanted to make sure, I'm not going for my firearm.
Okay.
And he put my arms out and handcuffed me.
And then where did they take you?
Here.
They just put you right in the police car right away?
No, EMS put peroxide on my head. And I think they put peroxide on my face to get the blood off.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else I haven't asked you or you haven't said that you think is important for me to know? Okay. And you said you're in charge of the neighborhood watch group? Okay. And you were but you weren't doing it that night, or is it
No.
that you were just going to the store, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And driving out and you happen to see this kid and you want to check out with him, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Make sure he's okay. Okay. Well, actually, you did the right thing. You called the police
Yes, ma'am.
to have them check out. You just noticed them. Okay. Is that normally what you guys do when you see someone suspicious? You just call?
Yes, ma'am.
You don't try to make contact with them? Okay. All right.
Doing that interview, there was an indication, it appears that he was drawing something. Is that correct?
Yes, there was a pad in there, and he attempted to draw the location where it occurred.
Did you subsequent to that actually use a Google map to get him to actually draw on that to demonstrate exactly what happened?
Yes, it wasn't clear to me, and I was confused as to where it actually happened and how the neighborhood was set up, so I went and I got a printout of the Google map of the entire neighborhood and had him show me exactly what he was talking about using the map.
This is February 26, 2012. Again, I'm in with George Zimmerman in an interview room at the Sanford Police Department. You still have the right to remain silent. You have a right to an attorney and all what I spoke to you earlier about. Would you still continue to talk to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just want to ask you a few more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the neighbor.
And this is when you've gotten a Google map?
Yes.
Okay. And tell us how you got that Google map. Everybody knows about Google, but you actually went on the computer.
I went on the computer and I typed Retreat View Circle, I believe is the search, and when it showed it, I printed the page.
Okay. All right. And in terms, did you actually use that to actually have him draw what's going on?
Yes, as he would tell me, I would have him make markings on the map itself with a pen to show locations he's referring to.
Okay.
We're talking about, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you put an X on here where you first saw the guy?
Right about here.
Okay, right about there. Okay, and this is the entrance, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just highlight that. Okay, this is where you first saw him. Okay, and then you're driving. Where were you when you saw him there?
I was driving around here in this direction.
Okay, this is where your car was. Okay. Can you just write car right there? Okay. And then you saw him here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then where do you go from there? This is where you start. When do you start calling the police? Where are you?
I pulled in front of the clubhouse.
Okay. Did you pass him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So he was here and you passed him and went over here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Put an X there. That's where. Just put 911 because that's where you were when you called 911.
Well, it was the non-emergency one.
Okay. Well, that's where you called the police,
Yes.
right? Okay. Okay. And then he's behind you. He's still over here, correct? Because you pass him.
Right.
Okay, you pass him, and this is where he's looking at the houses. Okay. And then, where do you go when you realize, you said he comes and he circles your car?
No, ma'am. I lost contact of him as I was trying to get through because you have to...
So does he continue past you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he continues past you and you lose sight of him over here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so just draw an arrow where he continues to pass you.
He continues to pass me through here, and then he goes down here. You want me to...
And then he goes somewhere here where you can't see him?
Correct.
So just go to about where you think he might have been to where you lose sight of him.
He started going here and then behind these houses.
Okay, and you can see that from here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then when he gets behind the houses, you lose sight?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you said at some point he comes back and circles your car? Has he already done that?
He looked into my vehicle,
Okay.
but he didn't circle it at that point in time.
Okay. When does he come? You're still in the car talking to 911, right?
I'm trying to get through.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point you said he comes back?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you lose sight of him back here and then he returns?
I know. I drive my car up here.
Okay, so move your vehicle up to there.
Yes, ma'am. Right here.
Okay, and put car. And just draw an arrow from where you were to where you ended up.
There
Okay.
to there.
Okay.
And that's where I parked.
Okay, that's where you parked. Okay. You park here, and then, is that when he comes and circles your car?
Yes, ma'am. It might have been closer in between here, these houses.
Okay, well, you can move it.
Oh,
Just move it.
right around there.
You might have run around here, okay. We're going to X this one out because it's not where you meant. You meant that you came around here and ended up here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you ended up here, and then, is that when he circles your car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. He comes out from where?
I don't know.
Okay, all of a sudden you just notice he's circling your car.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So he's circling your car.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you still on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
The dispatch? Okay. Are you giving them a description or anything?
Yes,
else?
ma'am.
Okay. Where does he go where you lose sight of him again?
He walked back into the darkness here,
He went there? Okay.
and sorry.
He walks back in here.
Yes, ma'am.
Does he make the turn or does he go?
I didn't.
You don't know. By the time he gets here, you can't see him.
Correct.
Okay. And you're still in your car?
Yes,
And you're watching him walk away?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then what happens?
The dispatcher asked me what direction he went on and exactly what address I was at.
And this is when you don't realize what street you're on because you're on the
Correct.
center street and you live on the outside.
Correct.
Okay. So you're trying to figure out what street you're on. Okay. So you see him go here, and then so what do you do to try to?
I got out of my vehicle to look at this house's address and see if there was a sign there.
Okay.
There wasn't.
Okay.
So I walked through the dog walk to see if there was a sign here or an address that I could make out easier.
Okay. And then what happens?
The dispatcher asked me if I'm out of my car, and I said yes. And they said, "Do you know what direction he went in?" I said, "No." And they said, "Are you following him?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't know where he went."
Okay. But you continue straight on the sidewalk
Yes,
to
ma'am.
this side.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am, all the way through.
And then what happens when you get here? You decide that you still don't know where you're at?
I still didn't know where I was at, but I was able to give the dispatcher a description from the clubhouse. I said they come straight in past the clubhouse, and my car is right here.
Okay.
And
Is your car running or you've shut it
It's
off?
shut off.
Okay. So you're just parked here. You follow him. It doesn't matter so much. So you walk here, and when you get here, you realize, okay, I'm just going to go back to my car. Is that what happens, or?
no, the dispatcher says, "Would you like a police officer to still come out? Because I said, I don't know where he went.
Okay.
Because he asked me for what direction they went in,
Okay.
and what road, and I said, I don't know where he went. And they said, well, do you still want an officer to meet you? And I said, yes. And they said, well, where do you want them to meet you? And I said, at my car.
Okay.
So I start walking back towards my car.
Okay. Is this all dark in here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there's no lighting back here anywhere unless it comes from someone's house? Is that
Correct.
how it works? Okay. And is it all dark down here so
Yes,
you can't
ma'am.
see anything down here?
Unless there's patio lights on.
Okay, so at what point and where from what bushes does he jump out?
It was somewhere around here.
Did you know is there bushes along this walkway or where are the bushes?
There are hedges around the sides and the back of the buildings.
Okay, so you think it's up here somewhere where the T is, where he jumps
Yes, ma'am.
out? Okay, do you remember, you were walking this way, did he jump out in front of you from somewhere, or did he come up behind you, do you remember?
I don't recall.
Okay, but he was, from what you guess, he's somewhere hiding at this T with the bush,
Yes, ma'am.
in the bushes when he jumps out. Okay. And then where do you end up when you guys are on the ground and after this is all happened? Where? Do you
He
even know?
punched me in the face and I fell backwards and I don't even know
You
where
just know
I
you're somewhere in this area?
ended up. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when the police took you, they took you
Back out this.
back up this way, okay. Okay. And when that man was standing there with a flashlight, do you remember what building he was from?
No, ma'am.
Do you remember what building you saw when you said you saw somebody?
This one.
You saw somebody over here
Yes,
when you were hollering for help and the
Yes,
guy
ma'am.
says, I'm calling?
Yes,
Okay, this is the building where you see somebody. Okay. Okay, but he jumps out of bushes somewhere in this area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, what kind of gun was it?
Mine?
Yours?
A Kel type 9mm.
Okay.
Do you think I can have water?
Oh, yeah, I'll get you another one. Or you can have soda or coffee or anything.
Water.
Okay.
Thank you.
You don't need to use the restroom yet?
No.
Okay.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, Mayor.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's been introduced into evidence, I believe without objection, 176. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 176, ma'am?
Yes, this is the Google map I brought Tim that he wrote on.
And is that the Google map that you were using in the last interview with the defendant?
Yes, this is the same map.
Okay.
If you're done with that, good. Okay.
Your Honor, may the court assist us by dimming the lights a little bit? I apologize. Ma'am, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 176. Do you see it there?
Yes,
Okay. And is this the Google map you used in having the defendant describe his actions and where he came into contact with a person we now know as Trayvon Martin?
yes, this is the same
Okay.
map.
All right. And let's go over a few things if we can. I'm pointing to, appears to be a pink right here. What is the significance of that? Does it say car on there?
If it says car, that's where he says his car was when he first noticed Trayvon.
All right. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to blow up part of this Google map so that jurors can see it. Okay. So right here, I am pointing to where it says the word car. That is pink. He's actually writing that in, or are you writing that in, or how does that progress?
He wrote that down, and
Okay.
I may have put the direction of the arrow,
Okay.
showing the direction that he was going.
The defendant was driving? Okay. The next, what appears here is something in pink and an X. What is the significance of that?
That is supposed to indicate where Trayvon was when he first saw him.
Okay. So the defendant is telling you he is driving this way, and he comes into contact and sees Trayvon Martin, the victim, right here where the X is?
Yes, that's where he says he sees him first.
Okay, all right. In terms of using this map, I see what appears to be a line going this way. Tell me the significance of that.
Okay, the line that leaves the car shows the route of the car, and the line that leaves the X shows the route of where he says Trayvon passed him and then went behind the first set of houses there.
Okay.
The houses to the right of the clubhouse, you see three? They're at the top of the T.
Right here?
Yes.
Further down here? Okay. Let's go back, if we could, to right here. Is this what you understood to be the clubhouse area that I'm circling right here?
Yes.
Okay. There appears to be here an X and some lines right here. Do you see that?
Yes, I believe it should say 911. That's where his car went, and
Okay.
he said he called 911 there.
May I approach the witness again? I'm going to give you the actual exhibit, and we have that up there, but just to make sure. So that is actually 911. Just remember, I have that back. So tell us again the significance of this right here that I'm circling, this part of this exhibit.
Okay, you'll see from the first place he says the car is, there's a line that shows him going there. And then instead of putting car at that location, because he said he remained in his car, we used 911 to show that's where he was when he was in his car and he called 911.
Okay. Now, on this exhibit, are there two lines, one going this way and the other one going the same way, but there are two lines going parallel at that point?
Yes, the X indicates Trayvon Martin, the first X, over all the way to the left.
All the way over here?
And then it's supposed to be a line showing the X stops at the car at some point where he says he looked into the car.
He being Trayvon Martin looked into the defendant's car?
That's what George Zimmerman is explaining happens, yes.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
And then when I asked him, draw now a line where you say after Trayvon leaves you, where he ends up when he's out of your sight.
Okay.
And that's the arrow that goes straight and then ends up behind the houses right there.
Okay,
If you go up a little bit that line, he ends up, it's right behind the house where he says that's where he loses sight of him. He follows the street around and goes
okay.
there.
And that's where the defendant claims that he lost sight of Trayvon Martin?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you also have something here, and I can't make out what that is, but it's pink and it's some kind of writing there. Tell me the significance of that, if you could.
You'll see how the car, where it was 911, leaves, this mic's not acting right, leaves the clubhouse. I asked him to draw where he goes from there. He initially wrote that he stopped there, but then he scribbled that out to change where the car ends up a little bit more forward, where it
Okay.
says car,
Right here?
if that's where it says car.
So he originally
Yes.
had it here, and then it moves here. What happens over here?
The circle means that's where he said Trayvon circled his car.
So where that circle is in the X, that is where the defendant claims that Trayvon Martin came up and circled his car. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us what, in terms of the defendant is telling you using this Google map, what he claims occurred after that.
Trayvon leaves that area and goes straight into the T, at the top of the T. He doesn't
Am I
know.
pointing it out here this way, this route?
Yes.
Okay.
He says that at the top of the T at the intersect, he doesn't know if Trayvon continued straight or if he went down.
Okay, I'm
Between
going
the houses.
to point this cursor and tell you I'm going red. The defendant's claiming he didn't know if Trayvon Martin went this way or went down this way?
Yes, that was my understanding.
Okay, what else does the defendant then claim?
That he got out of the car to locate a house address so that he could better tell dispatch where he was. This is all on the tape though, so you can hear exactly what he
Right.
said.
Right, so the defendant is claiming he got out of the vehicle right here to try to get an address so he could tell dispatch where he was at?
Yes.
Okay, what happens to then the defendant? And the reason I'm asking is it appears to be lines going this way. If you could tell us the significance of that.
It's probably just a second line. He says that he goes all the way across the T to the other side.
Okay, stop me if I'm going too far. Does he claim he's going like this,
Yes.
all
Yes.
the way to this street?
Yes.
Okay. What does the defendant claim he occurs when he gets over to the street that circles the whole retreat of Twin Lakes?
I believe that's where he says he lost him. He's telling dispatch he no longer knows where he is.
Okay.
He says that when he was there is when he no longer knew for sure which direction Trayvon had gone.
Okay.
and thought maybe he was hiding.
Meaning he didn't know whether Trayvon Martin went this way or whether he went this way right here, one of those two?
Yes.
Okay, what does the defendant then claim at this point?
He discusses with dispatch whether or not the police should still come to the scene, and it's agreed that they will.
Okay, what else does the defendant claim as to what occurred?
He begins to walk back to the vehicle, which would mean he has to go past the intersector of the T again to go
Okay,
back to where he
am I
parked.
going the right way?
Yes.
Okay, stop me whenever he says something else happened.
He says it happens at the intersect of the T, a little bit past it.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay, what does the defendant claim happens there?
Then Trayvon approaches him. He's not sure exactly where he came from.
Okay. In the interview that you conducted of Mr. Zimmerman, the defendant, he said something, he came out of the bushes or something. Were you trying to, using this Google map, determine or have him point out where it was that he claims the victim came out of?
Right, because in some of the areas you can see bushes, but I couldn't particularly see them in that area, so I was trying to figure out what he was attempting to say.
Okay. What happens then?
He says that's when Trayvon approaches him and said what he said on the tape.
All right.
About,
All right. You have, it appears an X is drawn right here?
that is the location that he said that when he was calling for help and saw somebody at a residence, he indicated that was the area that he had seen the person from a residence that would be located in that area.
Okay. Ma'am, you've conducted an interview, a recorded interview, then you conducted a second interview using the Google map. At this point, then, do you take additional steps regarding your interview of the defendant? Specifically, do you give him paper for him to write out a written statement?
Oh, yes. I had him fill out a statement form. I
Thank you, Your
just
Honor.
explained to him as best he could to explain everything he had told me in the interview, to be very detailed as to what he told me and try to put that in writing.
Now, in terms of the written statement, did you actually sit with him and go, okay, this is not right, change this or all that? Or how did that occur? Did you leave him alone, or were you in there with him telling him, you got to write this, you got to write this, or how did that proceed?
No, when I gave him the paperwork to write the statement, I left the room, and when I came back, he was done, and I had him sign them. I didn't read them. And I turned them over to Investigator Serena.
All right, and when you say you actually gave him paper, approach the witness, Your Honor? You're going to show State's Exhibit 175, that's previously been shown to counsel, and I believe there's no objection.
Yes, thank you.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 175. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 175?
I do. This is the statement that George Zimmerman wrote that night.
Okay.
And I witnessed.
And I believe, is that 4 actual pages?
I believe it was 4, but I'll check. Yes, it's 4.
And when you say 4 actual pages, what do you mean by that in terms of, and you actually witness, what do? You, every page you kind of write your
Right,
name?
I don't mean that I witnessed him filling these out. I witnessed that he signed, and that is his signature on each page. And they swear to it, that you affirm that everything you wrote in the statement is true, and they say yes, and they sign each one, and that's what I'm witnessing.
Okay. So he actually signed each page?
Yes. And I did as well.
I'm sorry, you did as a witness too?
Yes.
All right, ma'am, and let me do this. I apologize, ma'am. Approach the witness again. Let me leave you the exhibit itself, 175. I gather the pages are numbered in some way, some fashion, at the bottom?
Yes. Down at the bottom it says 1 of 4, so the second should say 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4,
Okay.
as it goes along.
Now, what I'm going to do is blow this up so that jury can see it and get it, just the first part first. Are you getting just, what is up there in the very top?
That's already preset print on the page, and then he just fills out the information it's asking for.
Okay. And that would indicate what? His name?
Name, address, date of birth, social security number, phone number, city, DL number, with driver's license number.
Take that down. Just take
How can I clear it?
Maybe first is the line.
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm going to go into the actual written part of the exhibit. First part here. This is his handwriting, the defendant's handwriting, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and if you could go ahead and read what he wrote.
In August of 2011, I can't read with the lights down.
Oh. Can you read it from over there? It's going to test it's an eyesight test.
It's not good.
Okay.
Although I do wear contacts, they're not very helpful sometimes.
Okay. I think jurors can see that, hopefully. Okay, go ahead.
All right, in August of 2011, I don't know what it says there, my something house.
Neighbors?
Okay, my neighbor's house was broken into while she was home with her infant son. The intruders attempted to
Attack?
attack her, and did. However, SPD reported to the scene of the crime, and the robbers fled. My wife saw the intruders running from the home and became scared of the rising crime within our neighborhood. And I and my neighbors formed a neighborhood watch program. We were instructed by SPD to call the non-emergency line if we saw something suspicious, and 911 if we saw a crime in progress.
Okay, let me interrupt you a second. How do I go back and then just go to the second part? Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Tonight I was on my way to the grocery store when I saw a male approximately 5'11" to 6'2", casually walking in the rain, looking into homes. I pulled my vehicle over and called the SPD non-emergency phone number. I told the dispatcher what I witnessed, and the dispatch took note of my location and the suspect. I think it says possibly has fled.
Okay, and now the word suspect, that's his word. Or will you tell him to put certain words to describe the person we now know as Trayvon Martin?
No, I didn't tell him any words to use. I told him to tell me to put in writing what he had already explained to me, and to be as detailed as he could.
Okay. Let me stop you a second. A place for him to sign and a place for you to sign as a witness, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're going to go to page 2, but give me a second to catch up to you. Okay. Page 2, the top part reads the same. He's just got his name, and then I'm going to highlight the first part. If you could, go ahead and read. I apologize.
You want me to begin?
I'm sorry. Yes,
Okay.
please.
In a darkened area of the sidewalk, as this dispatcher was asking me for exact location, the suspect emerged from the darkness and circled my vehicle. I could not hear if he said anything. The suspect once again disappeared behind,
Could that be between?
possibly,
Okay.
between some of the houses. The dispatcher once again asked me for my exact location, and I could not remember the name of the street. So I got out of my car to look for the street sign. The dispatcher asked for a description and the direction the suspect went.
Let me
I told
interrupt
the
you a second.
dispatcher.
Hold on one second. Sorry, just getting. Okay, go ahead. I apologize.
I told the dispatcher I did not know, but I was out of my vehicle looking looking for a street sign and direction the suspect went. The dispatcher told me not to follow the suspect and that an officer was en route. And I headed back to my vehicle. When I headed back to my vehicle, it's as I headed back to my vehicle. The suspect emerged from the darkness and said, "You got a problem?" I said, "No." The suspect said, "You do now." I can't
It's
figure out
something-
that last word is that
Okay.
you wrote.
All right.
You do now and
Okay,
looked, maybe?
okay. All right.
It maybe says and looked.
All right, we're going to move on to page 3, but let me just stop you before you read that, and we're going to highlight, go ahead, the first part. Again, he uses the word suspect to refer to Trayvon Martin. Have you uttered those words, or have you informed him in any way that's the word he's supposed to use to refer to Trayvon Martin?
No.
Thank you. Go ahead, page 3.
It finished off and looked and tried to, I guess he's trying to say I looked and tried to find my phone to dial 911. The suspect punched me in the face. I fell back toward,
You said
I
backwards?
fell backwards onto my back. The suspect got on top of me. I yelled help several times. The suspect told me, "Shut the fuck up," as I tried to sit up. Right. The suspect grabbed my head and slammed it into the concrete sidewalk several times. I continued to yell help. Each time I attempted to sit up, the suspect slammed my head
Okay,
into the sidewalk.
Let me stop you a second. Hold on, sorry. I'm trying to catch up here. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
My head felt like it was going to explode. I tried to slide out from under the suspect and continue to yell help. As I slid, the suspect covered my mouth and nose and stopped my breathing. At this point, I felt the suspect reach for my now exposed firearm and say, "You gonna die tonight, motherfucker." I understood my firearm.
Could that be unholstered? Or whatever you...
Yes, that would make more sense. Unholstered my firearm in fear of my life. I unholstered my firearm in fear for my life, as he had assumed.
Could that be assured?
You think it says what?
I can't spec
Okay.
whatever. I believe the word is assured, A-S-S-U-R-E-D, but...
As he, I don't know if it's assumed or assured, he was going to kill.
All right, before you get to page 4, we got to pull it up.
Okay, now I've seen the whole sentence, maybe I can figure out what it says.
Okay.
My life as he assured he was going to kill me,
Okay.
and fired one shot into his torso. The suspect sat back, allowing me to sit up, and said, "You got me." At this point, I slid out from underneath him and got on top of the suspect, holding his hands away from his body. And another,
An onlooker?
yes, an onlooker appeared and asked me if I was okay. I said no. He said I was calling 911. I said I don't need you to call 911, I already called them. I need you to help me restrain this guy. At this point, SPD officer arrived and asked, "Who shot him?" I said I did, and I placed my hands on top of my head and told the officer, where on my person my firearm was holstered. The officer handcuffed me and disarmed me. The officer then placed me in the back of his vehicle.
And you signed that last page also, like you had the prior
Yes.
4 pages?
All of
Prior
them.
3 pages? Okay. Now, the defendant continuously refers to Trayvon Martin, the person we now know as Trayvon Martin, as a suspect, correct?
He did in the statement.
In that written statement, in the prior statements, he did not. The prior audio statements, he didn't refer to him as a suspect, did he?
No, he did not refer to him as a suspect in anything but this.
Okay, all right. And when police officers are talking about a person they suspect of being a criminal, committing a crime, did they refer to them as suspect?
Yes, we do. If we suspect them of a crime, they're a suspect.
Okay. All right, I don't know if now would be the time to take a recess or...
Time to recess for lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to recess for lunch, and while you're getting your notepads to put face down on the chairs, I'm going to remind you that during the lunch time, you're not to have any discussions amongst yourselves or with anybody else about the case. You're not to read or listen to any radio, television, or newspaper reports about the case. You're not to use any type of electronic device to get on the internet to do independent research about the case, people, places, things, or terminology. And finally, you're not to read or create any emails, text messages, Twitters, tweets, blogs, or social networking pages about the case. Do I have your assurances that you will abide by these instructions? Okay, we'll be back at 1:30. So please fold your notepads down and follow Deputy Jarvis to the jury room. Yes. Officer Singleton, you're free to go for lunch and be back at 1:30, but please remember that you're still on the witness stand, so you cannot discuss your testimony with anybody, including the lawyers, and that means what you have testified to or what you will testify to, okay? We'll see you at 1:30. Is there anything else that we need to take up before we recess for lunch? Court is in recess until 1:30.